Hello everyone, we are Team Patience, and today we will introduce our history gamification model. First, I want to talk about the major problems. So, history has always been a difficult subject for students. Although history itself is one of the most essential subjects, it is often seen as boring. History, unlike mathematics or chemistry or other sciences, does not require a lot of logical thinking, but the ability to remember a huge amount of information. And students have to remember the dates, the names, and events at the same time to be considered good at this subject. And after completing an exam, most students admit that they forget a lot of what they have studied. Obviously, it is very difficult to solve information about history in the mind with just name and text in the textbook. And it would be easier for students if they can visualize historical figures or events in their head. But the teaching tools in a typical school is just textbook and a few pictures. Furthermore, the fact that students do not believe that history is prevalent is slowly causing this subject to be abandoned. Phan Hule, a great Vietnamese historian, has repeatedly stated his opinion that history education needs to be changed completely and comprehensively, and that was the major problems of history education. Now to the next part.
Next, I will present the market insight. In 2009, a research by Meijin et al. Illustrated that more of the students said history was too theoretical to memorize. The problem was also due to the boring textbook and the unclear description of the historical events. 55% of high school students said they didn't know about the gamification in education. Moreover, the majority of students aged from 15 to 18 didn't have access to the gamification model for their history learning, or they didn't even know about the existence of this concept. When asking people what they expected in a gamified model to improve their learning progress, the results showed that they wanted to integrate games with school lessons. The game should contain leaderboards to let them compete with other learners and could offer rewards after completing a lesson. Next, I will present and introduce three main ideas about my customer persona: demographics, goal and motivation, and the last is psychographics. First, about the demographics, we focus on target customers ranging in age from 15 to 18 who are students in high school and have difficulty studying history. They are still financially dependent on their parents or relatives. We choose a specific range of subjects living and studying in Ho Chi Minh City for in-depth research. Second, I will talk about the goal and motivation of my customer. They are the ones who have difficulty finding interest and motivation in learning about history. High school students struggle to find a way to study history subjects to get good grades, but can find an effective way. So they want to acquire knowledge of history via gamified education application to enhance their concentration, motivation, and have fun in the study process. Finally, to talk about psychographics, our target customer are known to be a typical Gen Z, grown up in a rapidly evolving technology landscape, and they are tech savvy. Also, in general, the educational program in Vietnam, and especially history, is constantly being improved. Actually, it's still very traditional and makes students get bored. So they tend to participate in social networks and games instead of having hobby in learning. In short, our target customer persona presented is a motivation of our study to design an interesting gamified educational application.
Okay, so after having a clear insight into the problem existing in the market, our team has finally come up with a gamified educational model for a high school student named History Journey. This application was inspired by two kinds of games that are role-playing games, and adventure games. The learners will become a character in the future world. In this world, players are the only one existing with many broken machines surrounding them. As players, students have to enter the virtual space by interacting with the broken machine and experience many events that took place in history, by exploring the historical objects and communicating with the NPCs to learn the story. Each machine contains a lesson based on the high school history syllabus. After a few moments, they have to do quizzes and choose the most important factors of the event to finish the exploration in the end. For example, while you explore the Battle of Padang that took place in 938, what you have to choose to win the war are the Ngô Lord, the Massive Stake, and the Grabs. If players choose the exact answers, they can win the battles and have a chance to watch the short animated videos to summarize the whole story. After completing the stage with no mistake, players can fix the broken machine and get the badges and a small side story of the historical characters. Moreover, they can also obtain the pieces of loading or equipment for the character that are relevant to the finished event. The application builds up the cumulative XP to unlock the historical side story which are not in the compulsory curriculum. About our model format, this application can be used on both PC and smartphone for the convenience of the high school student. About our unique selling point, the History Journey app can motivate students to use the application not only for learning but also for entertainment by exploring the past events themselves. The reward in this application are the stimulating factors to reward the student engagement in discovering more about the historical stories. Finally, this app focuses on creating the aesthetic images for their history learning so that it could help them easily visualize the knowledge for the better memory. About our customer value proposition, the gamification features in this app will reinforce the high school students to spend more time on history learning because of the great collection awaiting them in the app. Secondly, this application supports improving the learning experience by visualizing the historical events. Therefore, the student would memorize knowledge more effectively. So finally, it is the game mechanic. We apply the collection system to this gamified model. Badges are rewards that students can receive after passing a stage to prove their effort in learning. The badges must have the aesthetical design to encourage the student to keep learning and earn more. Secondly, is the accumulative experience point, or we also call the SP. The students can earn SP if they go through the different stages. The SP helps to unlock the extra story for new exploration and rewards. We also have an any short animated video that can be played at the end of the exploration, which beautifully made it supports them to visualize the events so that they can remember the knowledge better. The next one is a small side story as an appealing reward after finishing a new stage or accumulating enough XP. It helps to enrich the students' collection and encourages them to experience the app to gain more engaging stories. Finally, there will be pieces of loading for players. Everyone wants their character to be the most beautifully dressed, so continual progress in learning is central for unlocking more fashionable clothes for the character. Yeah, so that is also the end of our presentation in our idea of gamified educational model. Thank you for your listening.